Welcome to It Happened in Grand Prairie, Texas, as we bring you the history of our city and some of the people that have made history and some people that continue to make history this very day. And this is our history tape number 617, 617. And we're very excited today. We have a long-time Grand Prairien on board that is very, very interested in Vietnam veterans. And we're so pleased to introduce to you and bring to you Ray Jean Bush, a very special young man from Grand Prairie, Texas. Ray Jean?
Thanks, Ruthie. Thanks for having me on here.
Yes. All right. Now, Vietnam veterans, you're really into that, but before we get into that subject, we want to talk about the real Ray Jean Bush.
Okay.
Okay, let's have a little bit about you and your family. I'd like for you to name your parents, and if you have brothers and sisters, I'd like for you to name them, and how long you all have been in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Right. My folks moved here in 1949, and they moved into the old area down in the northeast part of town.
Yes.
Down there off Fairfax Street, which is right in line with the with the
plant.
flight line there.
Yes.
for the plant. And we had
You'd give their names.
My dad was Wilfred Gerald Bush, and my mom was Esther Ruth Bush.
And her maiden name?
Her maiden name was Blunt.
That's
and
good.
Her parents lived up along the Red River up at Savoy, Texas.
All right.
And my dad came down from around Central Texas.
All right.
And actually, my dad played softball with your husband
That's
down
good.
in around the Hyco area.
Oh, good.
So we go back a long way, Ruthie.
Yes, you
and,
do.
I have two sisters, Linda Joyce Hand. She is married to the choir director, Larry Hand, out at South Grand Prairie High School.
All right.
I have a younger sister, LaRue Lamance, who is married to Ed Lamance, who is on staff over at Lake Arlington Baptist Church over there in Arlington.
In Arlington.
So my wife and I, Verna, we live out across from the Country Club Estates, across from the soccer fields over 1382.
Oh, that's pretty.
It's a nice area.
Yes, it
and
is.
There's still a lot of wildlife out there being displaced by homes.
Yes.
And I love the outdoors, love the wildlife, and so I enjoy that. Yeah.
Do you have children?
We have 4 children. I have 2 stepchildren and 2 adopted children.
Good.
We have an older daughter, Kelly.
Okay.
And she's got 5 children, lives in the Keller area.
Yeah.
I have a son, Kevin, who is just moved from Denton down to Fort Worth, and he's working as a waiter over there, trying to finish up North Texas. He should finish up this summer.
Good luck.
I have a stepson, Patrick Crocker, who has just finished up JAG school, or he has finished up law school over at in Virginia, and he is into the JAG Corps, the U.S. Army. He's just moved down to Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
And his name?
Patrick Crocker.
Okay.
And I have another stepson, Jonathan Crocker, and he's going to school over to El Centro, studying paralegal.
Oh.
So
what a majestic family.
We've got an excellent family, and they're doing a lot of neat things. And I hope that they get out on their own and do things well.
Does your wife work out of the home?
She works actually in the home. She works from home, but she works for Sprint.
Good.
And she's been with them for a number of years, and she's a financial analyst for Sprint. And she works hard. She works
That's
hard
right.
from home. There's a lot of activities going on there, and so she does that.
What do you do for a living?
I work for Vought Aircraft Industries.
How long?
I've worked there 25 years.
Mercy.
Ruthie. Just this last couple of weeks have made that milestone. And I work with the configuration data management. I'm a specs and standards engineer there at the plant. And my group covers all the specs and standards used for all the different sites and all the different aircraft products that we produce.
That is an awesome job.
It is an awesome job. There's a lot of revisions that goes on in those specs and standards, and to keep up with those revisions, it is a full-time job, right?
That is wonderful. And you've just been there so long that it's really easy for you to fall into that one, isn't it?
I'm second generation Vought aircraft. My mom worked out there in 1949, and I just understood that you started there many years ago too.
Yes.
And you said that you just attended the Survivors, Vought Survivors.
Yes.
Wasn't that interesting?
That was most interesting. That is the most interesting group. We were a lot of old folks that got together and had a good lunch and a good time and a wonderful speaker. So that's a happiness is.
You know, the retirees club out there is still active. I still
Yes.
see the vehicles parked in the parking lot when they're going over to the races
Yes.
or something in Louisiana or doing some activity. They do a lot of things together, and they have a wonderful time, from
Yes.
what I understand. I'm not
And-
there yet.
Well, they made us that were with North American Aviation and Timco honorary members of that, and we get to go to all of the BOT activities now, and we're members of that just like we were on sale.
Well, I know you're terribly busy because I see you at every function I go to, and,
Sure.
and there's Ruthie Jackson. So thank you for your service to the community, Ruthie.
You're welcome. Now, let's get to military stuff.
The military stuff.
Vietnam.
Right.
Why?
Why Vietnam?
I know that you fought in Vietnam and all of this now, but tell us a little bit about that. But I want to know the now thing on Vietnam with your
Right.
crusade that you have going.
The reason that I'm here and the reason that you're talking with me now is because we're trying to get the Vietnam Veterans of America chapter here in Grand Prairie started. And we've just recently got a chapter number, but our chapter number is 1013.
Good.
And we're
So
working,
you're a reality now.
We're a reality.
Okay.
We are being officially recognized by the national organization. This is Vietnam Veterans of America.
Yeah.
And it's a real neat organization devoted to helping the veterans and their environment and their causes, their dependents,
Yes.
their orphans, and that sort of thing. So it's a good organization, and we're trying to get that word out to all Grand Prairie residents that may have been a Vietnam veteran or a Vietnam era veteran,
Okay.
because it goes from you can be a Vietnam veteran if you're if you're actually in country in Vietnam between February 28th of 1961 to May 7th of 1975, or if you're served anywhere in the world in the military actively.
Yes.
From
during that
August
time.
from August 5th, 1964 to May 7th, 1975. You remember that May of 75 is when Saigon fell.
Yes.
And how that was, I just felt like something had been torn away from me when that country was lost. And
Yes.
and to see all of the possessions and all the military aircraft being pushed over the side of the aircraft carriers, I mean, and the people being lifted from buildings. For those of us that fought, that gave time and effort there, or lost loved ones, a very, very trying time for us.
Yes. Now, in the past, we have interviewed, I believe, James Henderson on May the 15th, 1997, on our television show in the past, because he was a young man that was interested in documenting and photographing a memorial group.
Right.
And those were in the library until recently, the pictures of those. And I visited the library, and they've taken down the pictures. They're going to remat them, reframe
Oh,
them,
that's good.
and rehang them in the Grand Prairie
It'll look-
Memorial Library, because it was built to honor veterans
Right.
back in its past, the history of the library. So that young man, James Henderson, and I know that you know, working with you, Roger Nichols.
Roger Nichols, those two veterans that had back in a couple of years ago.
Yes.
They were, I think, in 2006 when the wall came over here to Arlington.
Yes,
They went over there and visited the wall.
Yeah.
And these two veterans got to talking and got to knowing each other a little bit at that point. It was a Roger Nichols and Bill DeLeon. And
And Bill was supposed to be with us today, but he's busy.
He couldn't make it.
Yeah.
One reason or another, Bill couldn't make it, and so. But anyway, these two veterans, they wanted to see what they could do, and
Yes.
so they started attending the Vietnam Veterans of America chapter in Denton, Texas, and realized that was a little bit.
That's too far to go.
That's too far to go.
Too
And
much
so-
gasoline on the
So
road.
these two guys decided that, well, we need one here in Grand Prairie. So they got everything together and read up what needed to be done, and started having some meetings, trying to get some enthusiasm going on this chapter that
Yes.
they were trying to get together. And they struggled for a long time with having just a very minimal amount of attendance and minimal amount of information getting out about the chapter, and the need to get the veterans coming into the chapter. and they did that for a while, and then this year something started clicking. They got some new people in there, some new blood, and we got some organization going, and now we have, at the time that I wrote a little brief history, we had about 30. We've increased that number to about 40 people.
Oh, that is great.
So we just had a meeting here just last Tuesday. We had 19 present. So, and it's not the same, just like church membership,
Yeah.
Ruthie, it's not the same 19 or 20 people every time. There's things that come up. But we meet, we've been meeting. The meeting started out over at Inglewood Methodist Church.
Yeah, right.
And we've moved from there because they've moved their location.
They've merged
And
with another.
so now we're meeting over at the Senior Citizen Center.
Oh, good.
And we're meeting over there the second Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock. And we may have some location changes, but I believe all the people that are watching today can actually see the website for the Vietnam Veterans of America Grand Prairie, and I think that's going to be shown on the screen.
Yes.
So that'll be something that you
If
can go
they'll follow
to.
that, they can get all the
They can
great.
they can have contacts in there. We've got a good website put together by John Jenkins, who is an IT sort here in Grand
Good.
Prairie, and he's another veteran. We're looking for as many veterans as we can to join our group.
Yes.
And to more or less get this kind of lifted off the ground, and so that we can actually serve the veterans and then let the veterans serve the community.
Now, do you have a president or an organization or anything, or y'all just haphazardly gathered?
We've got some interim officers.
All right.
Bill DeLeon is the president, and then we
Okay.
have Roger Nichols as vice president, and then we have a secretary treasurer, John Jenkins.
Okay.
And the sergeant of arms is Ronnie Bogart, and I believe those are the only officers right now that we have, Ruthie.
Is that RONNYBEAUGARD? Ronnie Bogard?
Ronnie Bogart. Don't ask me how to spell that. I don't
Okay,
know.
I have it down here, and I'll put spell check. Okay, good. That's
Great.
good. That's wonderful. That is such a marvelous group. And are you having dues? In other words, have you set your dues or anything like that, or you just meeting?
It's a nominal. We'll probably have some fundraising activities. Right now, we're limited to the amount of fundraising we can do because we can't really go outside of the chapter till we get officially. We've got our chapter. We've got our chapter number, Ruthie, but we don't have
Your charter yet.
We don't have the charter yet.
Okay.
We're going to have a meeting where we have that charter and we can recognized by the national organization.
Then you can elect officers and
Then
have a
we-
board and all the good stuff.
All that good stuff.
Oh.
Now, and we're planning to take part in the Memorial Day activities coming up on
good.
the 26th.
Oh, yes.
Over here behind the library at
Yeah.
the memorial there. And I think our veterans, if you're a Vietnam veteran and want to come out and join us, you're certainly welcome to do that. And that's on the 26th, Memorial Day, Monday. And we're going to be meeting about 9 o'clock out there.
Yes.
And for those veterans that are in our chapter that might want to listen to, we haven't really got any kind of a vest or any kind of a dress code right now, but we are
Yeah.
going to wear khakis and a dark colored, black colored top.
That is good.
So that everybody can see just
Be
who
dressed
we are.
sort of alike.
Kind of alike.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that if somebody gets lost, we can pick them out of the crowd.
Yes. We need to have some kind of a big, exciting name tag for you all for that day. And I know that generally we have a certain, maybe part of the service that's recognized at that time. And I don't know who they have on board this time, but I'm being the mayor that day, so I have a proclamation to read and greetings to bring, but that's all. I don't have any influence over the committee.
Well, I'm sure that our involvement within the city and around the city is going to be
That's
a little
good.
bit more enhanced, and
Great.
we'll become a part of the city, and our services will be to the city, and hopefully the city will have services that'll be to us also. It'll be kind of a two-way street, I would think, Ruthie.
Well, I think it would, for a small minimum fee, you can get a sheet inserted in the Chamber of Commerce newsletter, and I
Right.
think you all ought to take up a collection and do all of that good stuff and let them know that y'all are organizing, and you need your Vietnam veterans.
Right.
And who's the most exciting person that you have that's promised to be a member of your group if you get it
Now,
going?
you remembered that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I remember that.
I have spoken with the staff for General Mike Mosley, who you remember that we have the elementary school out here named in his name.
Yes.
And I have spoken with his staff, and I mean, he is Chief of Staff of the Air Force, the
Yes,
top
he is.
general, the
Top dog.
the top dog, Ruthie,
Yes,
for the
he
whole
is.
Air Force.
And he's a gopher.
And he's a gopher, and he was actually actually demalays with me.
Yes.
And he's very, and he started out his career a long time ago. In order to be a Vietnam veteran and to be in our chapter, you need a DD-214, which is the exit form that you get when you get out of the service. And you need $20. I think it's $20 a year. It's a pretty nominal fee for dues for the Vietnam Veterans of America. And some of that money comes back to the chapter. Once we get all of our paperwork squared away, some of that money will come back to the chapter. But General Mike Mosley, I just got word here in the last couple, 2 or 3 weeks, that his staff has presented that opportunity for him to join our chapter, be kind of an absentee member.
Yes.
And he's tickled to death to do that.
Isn't that good? Isn't that exciting?
Oh, it is, and at some point, when he reaches retirement, Ruthie, I expect that he may come in and speak to our chapter and that sort of thing. We'll be just, I mean, for Grand Prairie to have a four-star general,
that is exceptional.
that is part of our heritage and part of our history. That's just great. I don't. I mean, we've done a lot for him, but if you go down to Fredericksburg, you see what Nimitz has done for Fredericksburg down there. I mean, General Mike Mosley is as much of a general as Nimitz.
Yes. Was an admiral.
Yes, Admiral Nimitz, correct. That's right. So, we're tickled to have Mike Mosley as part of our organization.
Okay. Well, that just about clears up a lot of things here. I'd like for you to look out into your camera right here, and I'd like for you to speak to the potential members that may be hiding here in Grand Prairie, Texas, because they don't know about us. And so would you give them an invitation and give them your www call letters or a phone number or something concrete that they could go on? Would you do that for us?
Our website, Ruthie, is www.vietnamvetsofgp.org, and I think that he's got this.
Brother Don has that in the studio.
Brother Don's going to have that right there on the bottom of the screen for you to look at. The national organization, if you want to find out more about what the VVA is all about, it's www.vva.org. And we're looking, Ruthie, we're looking for Vietnam veterans in and around Grand Prairie. They don't have to be Grand Prairie residents to be a part of our chapter, because you've got a chapter in Fort Worth, you've got a chapter in Dallas, you've got a chapter in Denton. But if you're looking for an organization that is looking to work in your behalf and give you information that you need to have in order to, I mean, there's health issues that you might be involved with. There are social issues. There's all kinds of things that involve veterans, and there's things that our government's doing for us. And if you're not plugged into the right communication lines, you may be missing out.
That's right.
And,
you don't want them to miss out.
We don't want these people to miss out. And it's and there's emotional things too.
Yes.
I mean, for the most part, we're trying to better the image of the Vietnam veterans. We're not running around town, begging for handouts and camo fatigues. And I mean, we have veterans that have come back and stepped in society and been productive in society, and we want everybody to be aware that there's that part of Vietnam veterans, and that we are giving back to our communities and giving back to our society, and we want to be recognized. We want to be recognized.
I think that's just a wonderful, and you have so many wonderful people that have stirred up the business here, and are willing to go the next mile or two with this. And
it's not just for the Vietnam veterans either, Ruthie. We want to make sure that all veterans get the proper treatment, the proper medical care, that their dependents and their orphans are taken care of.
Yes.
And that's all part of what we're doing.
That's great. Now, we're going to lay that aside, and I want you to tell me a little bit about Ray Jean Bush when he was in the service. What branch of the service were you in?
Ruthie, I was drafted from the draft board here in Dallas.
Yes. Okay.
So I decided that my chances were not quite as good if I was drafted as if I went down and joined and had a choice of what job and opportunities I did.
Yes.
So I went down and joined, and they said about the only thing left was a 4-year enlistment. Now I was drafted for 2 years. 4-year enlistment involved, the only thing they had available was getting into the Army Security Agency.
Okay.
And they said you couldn't have more than 2 traffic tickets, and you had to have a clean bill of health and all this.
That was easy.
You had to have a high IQ or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't know if I qualify, but I'll try. I don't have that many traffic tickets and everything. So I went down and I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And so I signed up for 4 years. I was with the Army Security Agency, and it required a top secret security clearance.
Yes.
And I was working with intelligence in Vietnam, and we were attached. My unit, the 371st Radio Research Unit, was attached to the 1st Cav Division in the Army there, and I was in there 69 and 70.
Yeah.
And I worked as a communications trick chief is what I was called at that point. And I actually had a number of people working for me, and we were working teletype. We would we would intercept the Charlie's communications and try to get direction finding on where their units were and the movement of those units, and we passed on that information to the 1st Cav Division, and then passed on that information to and from our command.
Yes, that was an exciting adventure, wasn't it?
It was. Now I wasn't, I'm tickled that I'm back in one piece, that I don't have the emotional repercussions from having served over there, and I was over there for 1.5 years.
Yes.
I was over there from March of '69 to November of '70, and
it was tough all over.
It was tough, and and although I wasn't out in the boonies and getting my feet wet and having to do all that,
dodge the bullets.
We did have rockets and mortars coming in on us daily and weekly.
Yes.
And you never knew, Ruthie, when you went to bed at night that you were actually going to get up in the morning.
Yes.
That you had no assurance that your life would take on, the next day's activities, and that changes people's perspective when you have that hanging over your head, and I can just imagine what one of our presidential candidates had being a POW, and what he might have had to go through, and the perspective that he would bring to life after that sort of thing, right?
And it's so amazing how you weren't well received when you came back home, but I'm glad that it's come into being now, that the wall in Washington is completed, or you're adding to it, and all of the things that really were forthcoming. I'm so glad that has changed, and now you are received with more honor than you were at the beginning.
It was really not a military loss, Ruthie. It was a political loss.
Yes.
And I mean, for the guys that gave so much over there, and for them to have the rug pulled out from under them, we don't want to do that with our soldiers and what they've sacrificed over there in the current conflicts. We just don't want to do that. And we got to remember these guys coming back, and these people are being plucked out of businesses. They're being plucked out of their homes and their family environments, and they're put over there in harm's way. And we need to
honor them.
We need to support and honor our soldiers, and make sure that any kind of coming home activity is honored, and that it's done properly.
Okay. Well, I think that y'all are going to maybe have a home base one of these days in Grand Prairie, Texas, like we had the American Legion Hall at one time, and maybe we can work on many things that could be coming forth from that. We've mentioned several things like that, but I want to thank you very much for you and the three that you have mentioned, Bill DeLeon and Roger Nichols, and some of the others that have pulled this thing together and have decided that we need to meet the needs of the day.
Right. We've got a good body of veterans, and we're looking for more Vietnam era veterans. And I think we're just going to it's going to be a big part of Grand Prairie and a big part of the Grand Prairie experience.
Well, I want to thank you for the time that you give, and your family for the sacrifice their giving by letting you give your time when you would be with your family. I know that that is hard for families to realize sometimes, but I just bless you every day for thinking about that. And Ray Jean Bush, you're a stalwart young man, and thank you so much for bringing this to us. And we hope to have a better report in about 6 months, that you'll have maybe
Well,
100 members.
I can come back and we can do this again, Ruthie.
Yeah.
I'm tickled that we were able to do it, and that we go back a long way.
That's wonderful.
And I'm glad that you're able to do this, Ruthie. And
Thank you
for your support to the community.
You bet, and thank you for being here. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do, and that we document it correctly. And thank you for watching this history show, and let us hear back from you if you're a Vietnam veteran.